All right, we're live. I fixed OBS. Welcome to This Week of Stupid for the 12th of January, 2025. Everyone, say hello to Ors. He has returned.
Hello and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, a lot of individuals ask me why isn't this a weekly thing. It's because Ors is a busy man, and I would rather get quality rather than quantity, and so I like him as a co-host. And if he can't make it because of various work-related issues, then I'm not gonna do the segment.
Yeah, family drama and the holidays, that's what kept me away, so gotta deal with it.
Did you get fat?
No, I lost a little weight actually,
Oh my
so
god, you're so lucky. See, here in Eastern
I am
Europe,
lucky.
we got the trauma of famine from communism, and every single time there's no, I'm not kidding. Like it's a
I
genuine
know,
trauma.
man.
Every time there's like the New Year's, the old ladies they cook like crazy.
Big feast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like massive feasts, and I'm like, but why though? And you can give them the math. You can take your grandma and be like, Grandma, this is how much a human being eats per day. This is how long it takes for food to spoil. You're creating quantities of nourishment that are unsustainable. We're going to throw some of it away. Please stop. And they just don't understand. And so,
Nope.
yeah, and so like everyone is getting fat during this time
Yeah.
period.
The, they are
Har-
the emperor and the food is the spice that must flow.
yeah, it's horrible. Anyway, right? A lot of things have happened while you were gone, including California burning.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And I mean California was already flaming and now it's just on fire.
yeah, Zuckerberg allowing people to talk about California burning.
Yeah, that's a big change. Holy shit.
We actually talked about Afghanistan declaring war to Pakistan. How's that going, though?
I don't know. I haven't followed it. It hasn't been super hot from what I understand. It's been typical border skirmishes, but
Also, the Afghanistan campaign into the hearts of Pakistan hasn't
well,
flown.
it's really a bigger question as to how much mobility and how much pressure can these guys actually push on fucking Pakistan, a nuclear state, right?
They're not blitzkrieging yourself.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but here we are.
Yeah. The war in Ukraine is actually taking an interesting. Like it's becoming a little bit more aggressive now.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a seventh round in a Rocky film. They're getting backed up into a hell of a corner.
yeah, I think it's because this is usually happening before peace negotiations, right? Because like the peace
Yep,
negotiations are usually based on posture and how much power you can project, and so
yep.
both sides are trying to stack the deck, right, to get their political capital up as much as possible. So this is why we're going to see a lot of escalation happening.
Yeah, pre-seasoning a negotiation by creating dilemmas that have to be addressed via and like you always want your opponent when you're doing these kinds of negotiations to have to play the heavy and hard cards first so that they use up almost all of their collateral, all of their momentum that they've built up into just
Yeah,
gaining back a few concessions.
and
So right now it's
unfortunately
about
that translates
inflicting
to
as much
human
damage as
lives.
possible.
Yeah,
Sorry, what?
unfortunately it translates to human lives on the ground. So
Yeah, it's just blood soaking the earth at this point.
yeah. We also have Elon Musk shit talking the European Union, especially Britain at this point. It's becoming like a pastime activity for him to shit talk, especially the Labour Party in particular.
Yeah, I saw him open tweeting to his royal fucking majesty and then turning on Nigel Farage or however you say his last name. Like all of a sudden, I guess they must have had some sort of falling out because he was hard ass donating to his side for like in the months prior, and now suddenly a big
Yeah,
flip.
it's over Tommy Robinson. So the,
Tommy Robinson. Oh yeah, the guy they jailed, right?
yeah. Well, apparently they jailed him for a civil offense, which is something that the
Yeah.
American brain can't really comprehend. But like politicians in the UK like generally don't like Tommy, right? And so Nigel, when he distanced himself from Tommy, Elon went. It's like, no, you're not going to distance yourself from
Yeah,
him.
he
And
went
if
for the throat right away.
yeah, um, but Farage also had like another statement, which he said, you can't really get rid of Islam at this point because it's way too entrenched.
I don't buy that kind of horse shit, but I can understand why he's saying it.
Yeah, and so this is why a lot of people are saying, well, he's not extremist enough.
Yeah. He's not willing to put his foot down, kind of thing, or he's showing a willingness to not put the foot down.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that's you have to do politics. You got to make a coalition, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people
Yeah,
don't understand
he's leaning
that.
into the typical political strategic thinking instead of going hardliner like people wanted him to do.
Yeah.
So some people are feeling a little touched by it.
Yeah, because you can go hardliner and then not get the vote, or have people leaving your party and then be inefficient. And so, you know, like it is a strategy that can work. Like I've seen leftist hardliners that got elected.
Yep.
I don't know
It
if
has
it's
happened. It's about just maintaining the right tone and getting it through until you're voted in, and hopefully keeping it for a little while.
Yeah, it's basically like what works for British politics. I don't know. It seems that in Britain, though, hardliners rarely get elected. So there's also that.
Well, yeah, the last time that they had hardliners, it went really bad. So I guess they're a little, what was the term, once bitten, twice shy about it all.
Yeah. Not a bad account. Thank you for the $2. Does Romania now have managed democracy elections? So apparently... Yeah, there are people protesting right now because you know, the Russian thing happened. It's like Russia interfered in our elections and the elections were canceled. Now, interestingly enough,
wait, did they actually get proof that these guys?
Well, yeah, this is why this is why I want to address.
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah, so basically, the Supreme Court of Romania, they didn't say that the Russians have interfered in elections. It was that one of the candidates broke the rules regarding election campaigning.
Like campaign funds?
Yeah, like he didn't disclose, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, the elections have to be redone. Now the...
Interesting.
Yeah, basically the three-letter agency, the Consiliul Suprem Apărare a Țării, like the Supreme Council of National Defense, like Homeland Security, basically.
Yeah.
They're the ones that said that a state actor, and it's like Russia, hint, hint, wink, wink, have been interfering in the elections, right? And after they said that, that's when the Supreme Court stepped in. But the thing is, it's been months, and no one has been, as far as I know, no one has been charged.
Like, no actual further information proffered or anything like that?
The Russian ambassador hasn't been summoned, because like that's like standard procedure, right? Like if
yeah, usually.
Yeah, and there hasn't been shown like any concrete evidence of this happening, and so people are upset, and they're protesting
with good reason.
Yeah,
because now it just looks like the interference came, like, you know, the call came from inside the fucking house.
Yeah, I mean, there's still questions of corruption. I mean, where in Eastern Europe, the fact that none of the mainstream parties managed to qualify for the second runoff is what a lot of people are saying. Like, well, like imagine if in America,
but did they lose qualification, or they just chose not to
no, like they lost. Yeah, like imagine if in America you'd have neither the Republican nor the Democrats qualifying, and instead you'd have
like Green Party, Orange Party, Rhinoceros Party, and all that shit.
No, like the Libertarian Party and maybe like that Kanye West guy, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have even like the Republican or the Democrat nominee, kind of like that.
Wow. Like, was it a failure to do paperwork, or did they fail some sort of certification?
No, people
like, what
didn't
was
vote. Like the way it works in Romania is that...
they didn't qualify for seats. Holy shit.
Yes. Like in Romania, you have like the first runoff, and the first two people that get the largest number of votes, they go to the second one.
The first past the post,
Yeah, and in the second one, there weren't like any from the mainstream parties.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were referring that maybe they didn't get their paperwork in order and they didn't judicially qualify for the election, but I mean, not getting the votes at all.
Yeah, they didn't get the votes.
Yeah, that's a hell of a message to be sent.
Yeah, and it's basically after that the elections were recounted. Like they asked for a recount, they did the recount, and it turns out that it was legit.
Okay.
And then they said, no, we're doing it again. And
what are the consequences of that? How do you guys like manage a minority government in that case?
Well, no. This is the presidential election, right? Like, it's not about the government. It's
okay.
And so the thing is, like, it didn't really matter, because like all they could do is like just get one guy, allow him to do a couple of blunders, impeach him, and then move on. Like I just don't understand.
Like a goddamn Seinfeld episode. All right.
Yeah, like I don't fucking understand why they decided to do all of this shit show, but it is what it is. I think that maybe the next elections will be in June or July. But at this point, I said on my channel, like, why even have elections anymore? I think elections are a threat to democracy. I mean, isn't the status quo really good? Like, you got Schulz in Germany, you got Macron in France, you got, you had Justine in Canada. Like, just stop doing elections. Just keep things the way they are. Because like, elections are dangerous. You got the Russians interfering. You got Elon Musk with his Starlink. Like, they're fragile.
I'm going to shoot from the hip here and say that, honestly, I would prefer Trudeau gets the fuck out of the office. But I would say there's always room for improvement, but there's also a hell of a lot more room for non-improvement or worsening of the situation.
Yeah, speaking of Trudeau,
we have a lot further to fall than we have to rise.
Speaking of Trudeau, he actually stepped down.
Yeah.
Justine.
Yeah. Well, he stepped down. He still has the reins until the LPC decides to or figures out who they want to replace him, right? Because the stepping down only comes into effect when a new figurehead is elected for the Liberal Party of Canada. Otherwise, Trudeau still has all of his de facto powers and everything.
So basically, he graduated the Liberal Party of Canada.
Yeah.
His streams are
he's
still
getting
up.
ready. He's getting ready for his farewell stream.
Is it going to be a farewell stream?
Knowing Trudeau, he's gonna try.
He's gonna try, right? So you can still buy the merchandise. You can still
like,
donate super chats.
He did okay for like at the start. He was better than he started off better than he ran. He did okay during COVID. Could have been a lot more improvement.
He did some collabs with China. I saw, like a few collabs with
India.
Yeah.
he let himself get kicked in the nuts by India. He kind of flubbed the collaboration with China in a whole lot of ways, and then the whole immigration thing. The immigration thing where he basically told Immigration Canada to completely stop doing actual background and credentials check. That shit turned me against him hard. That pissed me off. Really
I saw that the finance minister rage quit on him.
Yeah, well, I mean, 20 billion. He created a 20 billion deficit where it didn't previously exist, which basically ate all of the benefit that we had for like the new crown industry that we opened up with the cannabis industry that recently really came into full force in Canada.
How big is 20 billion for Canada? Because like when you talk about nation states,
well, it's a 50%. It's about a 50% increase in the expected overdraft, right? Because we were expecting a 20 billion. It's a 40 billion total budget, but then we went 60 billion in expenditures. So that's a 20 billion increase that wasn't supposed to be there.
I see.
And a big part of that was the absorption we had to take when Trudeau decided to give his 250 GST check to all Canadians. That's just expensive, man. Right? Like really, really expensive.
Well, I think most people out have said that because I keep seeing the car videos coming from Canada. Did you see the car videos?
Of course.
It's usually like an expensive car, and a lady is in the car, and the lady's very upset. I can't pay my groceries! I can't pay my food! I'm working 12 hours a day! I got children! I'm dying! And it's like video after video on TikTok, and they all have the exact same theme. And like you're telling me about the billions and the increase, and like I'm sure that's what's happening, but that's not how people see it.
Karen rage is real, buddy. Karen rage is real. Holy shit.
Right, so let's see what else we got. We got Donald Trump wanting to buy everything, and I'm thinking, like, can you imagine if Putin came out and he said, like, I'm going to take Greenland. Greenland is mine, it belongs to Mother Russia, and if they don't give it to me, I will apply economic pressure. I may even send the military, the Red Army.
Yeah. Yes, it's straight up gish galloping. So the whole deal is all of this, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, like, turn to, like, continuously calling Trudeau governor of Canada, that kind of stupid shit, and like renaming Gulf of Mexico. He's doing everything he can to create a new layer of horse shit on top of the H-1Bs that he's definitely screwing over everyone with. So to me, it just looks like it's yellow noise to try to get around the H-1B shit, because that's wildly and unifyingly unpopular across his entire base. And this shit here serves no purpose other than to just piss people off.
I think the headline. We'll get into it in a little bit. I like the fact that you mentioned Gulf of Mexico, and I thought that is a really pussy move from him. It's like bullying Mexico. It's like, oh, the United States is bullying. Why don't you call it the Sea of fucking Taiwan? Why don't you do the fucking Chad move and go in
Be
front
a
of the
best China.
cameras, and especially in front of Chairman Z, like have a live stream with him and be like, the Sea of Taiwan, like let's see you do that, and then I'll be impressed. It's like, oh, the Gulf of America, who fucking cares? It's like it's Mexico,
Yeah, it's fluff politics. It's just fluff.
What I think he is doing, and this is my assessment, I generally think he wants Greenland. I think he wants it because of the strategic positioning, but also the rare earth
Yeah.
minerals, right?
The whole the REs are definitely a part of it, but definitely the reason why Greenland is more interesting is because it has extremely solid and workable ground at its most northern point, which basically puts it less than 1,000 fucking miles away from here, Russia's northmost point.
And I think that can actually happen.
Yes, it can.
It can. And the thing with Canada is like, this is what I wanted to get before I'll stop interrupting you. I think like there's a tactic where you're asking for something unreasonable just to prime the audience. Like you're priming the market. It's like, oh come on, that's unthinkable. But then you're also asking something that's reasonable. And by doing this, you're making the reasonable thing be even more reasonable than it should.
Yes, sanity through concession. That's
yes.
Right.
Oh my fucking god, there's a word for it. See, like I experienced the world. I experienced the world through my senses, and I'm just like, okay, I seen this being done a lot, and then you're telling me, oh, there's a name for it. Okay, fuck.
Yes.
Okay.
So you start off by creating a ludicrous demand, like say for an example, like annex Canada or whatever the fuck. When in reality, he probably just wants to reopen the negotiation to put more bases in the north so that they can have a better first response, right? Because there is indeed a quickly heating up concern between the U.S. and Russia that not a lot of people are talking around in the background, but back channel discussion has broken down between the two nations, and that usually means preparation is more important than renegotiation. So
like the last thing that they talked was Russia saying, we're going to launch a missile into Ukraine, and they were wondering if it's a nuke or something, and it was one of those.
Kinjal, the big the big multis that they shoot out, the medium range multiple warhead vehicles, and that shit's scary for a lot of reasons, and rightfully so, right?
Would it be bad for Canada to be part of the U.S.?
So from a GDP standpoint, it would be an upgrade. From every other standpoint, it would be a significant downgrade for the average Canadian.
Like you'd have weapons, right? You'd get guns.
We already have weapons. We house an insane amount of U.S. troops. Plus,
no. I mean, you as a person, you'd be able to buy a 50 cal.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, right? There's states you can't buy 50 cals.
Oh.
Right. Hell, there's states you can't even buy fucking weapons, so that doesn't guarantee anything.
You'd be able to travel to America without a need for anything. Like there would be no border.
I mean,
right?
all I need is a fucking passport.
Yeah, you wouldn't need that.
Yeah, that's not difficult to get, and like there's the advantages of it are very, very few. The disadvantages and the cost between both nations would be absolutely fucking insane. It would take 15 years minimum to normalize the laws, and that's assuming there are no contests. So the only people who would win in that phase would be the constitutional lawyers who would make an insane amount of money. And it's like our nations do better as close trading partners than they would do as a unified force, because the larger you get, the more unwieldy things become.
Yeah.
Right?
And I also think it would be bad for right wingers. Like a lot of like I generally see people on the right that I don't know if they're LARPing or they're serious, but like they actually would like the idea of America unifying Canada. And I'm like, okay, so you want 3 additional Californias. Like you'd probably get like 3 states that are perpetually blue.
And think of like the whole landmass versus population size. Imagine how many electoral college votes Canada would get. Like, that's a lot of fucking land to represent.
Yeah, because I think you wouldn't have like California as a state. You'd have it like spread up into 2 or 3 states, right?
Yeah, they would probably they would make I guess you could say authority zones. I think that they were called, or there's a specific U.S. term for it in their organization of countries and shit. But there are ways to do it without having states, but that stuff gets getting complicated, and a lot of those laws were created like fucking way before any of like pre-Cold War shit, right?
I'm actually curious though, like if 50 years down the line, if you had like the U.S. and Canada as one nation, would it be
Yeah.
like the most powerful nation on Earth?
It would be the hardest one to deal with in a war because of its unified landmass, unified defense, right? Because that's the whole thing with the U.S., right? A lot of people say if war happens, et cetera, but they really don't think about the problem of getting to places where U.S. can actually be hit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the distance that you have to cross to be able to hit the U.S. from any other nation is hard for a lot of people to really conceptualize, and how much logistical things have to be put in play in order to allow a strike group to even be that close. So
I
unless
mean,
you're
from
putting something
Mexico,
into
I think
orbit,
you could do it.
yeah, but then you would have to approach Mexico, land in Mexico, prepare in Mexico, and like the United States, they're not blind. They would
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it
yeah.
happen, right? So like the amount of setup that would have to be done in order to become a land threat in the US is insane versus the amount of damage you could actually do. Like you could hobble them for a while, but there's a very good chance the US will turn around and basically fuck you all in the face if you try. But
Yeah. And
that's
the thing with
having
like behind every blade of grass is
yeah,
that's so
and having US and Canada together, like let's say they're not even let's say they're not even one nation. Let's say that they're in a unified protectorate, like a hand in hand nation to nation agreement. Like we're talking infinite wood, infinite fresh water, like an insane amount of lithium, an insane amount of uranium. Like overall, the two nations can probably survive an entire apocalypse together,
yeah. I mean, it's
just
one
because of
continent almost, right? So
well, yeah, it is. Think of how many biomes are spread out between the two nations. You can grow almost any kind of food.
so
It just depends on where you are, right?
this actually happened yesterday because you only have 1 hour, so I need to interrupt you so we can.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting into that logistical shit, right?
We got Melody-chan from Italy, and she looks very
Wait, who is
upset.
this?
Yeah, hold on, I'll show the picture to everyone.
Meloni.
Melody-chan. Do you know why they're calling her Melody-chan?
No.
She likes anime.
Really?
Yeah, she likes anime. She was at the anime con back in the day, and like, no, I'm not kidding. Right? Like she actually likes anime, and there's people artists that drew anime representations of her. So
Yeah,
like, she's
that I'm not
Melody-chan.
surprised. Yeah, that I'm not
And on
surprised.
top of that, you had the Tifa Lockhart getting ass fucked on the Italian prime minister. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
Hydra FXX on the main screen of the Italian parliament. You gotta love it.
yeah, apparently like the artist that drew that became very famous. Anyway,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Here is Melody-chan, and she's very upset. She's upset because she had to deport not one, but two Tunisians. So there are two Tunisians less in Italy right now. Why did they deport? Why did she deport them? Well, she used a special charter flight to deport two young Tunisian asylum seekers for insulting Italy on New Year's Eve in Milan.
Insulting Italy.
Yeah,
Oh.
they disrespected the Italian flag and they disrespected the Italian nation.
Well, I mean, they're asylum seekers. You're supposed to respect the flag and the nation that is housing you as a guest. If you bring a homeless person into your home to give them a break and they piss in the corner of your living room carpet, would you keep them in your home?
No, I agree with this source, but like two Tunisians.
Two of them. What
What a
what
private
an
jet.
earth-shaking movement, man.
I know, right? And she's like really upset. Like,
Like, depending on who you ask, many people would classify that as a good start.
a good start. I would classify it as a PR stunt using
Yeah.
taxpayer money in order to accomplish it. Like
The illusion.
Yeah.
It's justice theater. It's the illusion of treating asylum seekers the way they should be treated when they do obvious nonsense.
I mean, her entire platform, like she's on the Brotherhood of Italy thing, right? And her entire platform is like less immigration. And now you're like, oh, we're going to deport two of them on a private jet paid by the taxpayer money. Come on.
Yeah.
Like if this
Send them
is
back home in a boat, man.
yeah, if this isn't performance theater, I don't know what is.
Yeah. It's feel good theater. It's to pretend like
Feel-good theater.
she's trying to score points with a base that she's probably not used to catering to, or they think that they can just take a an easy byline, like, oh look, she actually deported people who disrespected Italy and didn't behave according to morality clause, whatever the fuck, in the customs code of
Yeah.
Italy. You know, insert whatever pseudo political reason here. But at the end of the day, too, what about the rest? What about like the ones that are going around busting shit up a couple of months ago, right? Because like Italy, I mean,
She'll probably get to the when she has money for another private jet.
yeah, because I think it was what, just 6 months ago or something like that. Italy was having a real goddamn hard time during its summer season.
Yeah. There were
Like,
pictures with like bitches with naked women, and like all of a sudden you have like all these people just coming on their little dinghies. Like... Anyway, this one is actually very interesting. Like I told you that I want to see your reaction when hearing from this, right?
All right, what's this one?
So California is burning. I'll put
Yeah.
images of this on the stream. Hold on, let me just open it up. There's a fire tornado as well. Like I didn't know that's a thing. Apparently it is.
Yeah, especially when you get enough hot air in a very local area, right? If you do bonfires at the beach, when the cold air starts coming in, that shit can happen even at the beach. So having it when you're up against the Pacific Ocean and you have that much fire, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like a big one, but it is. Whatever.
I mean,
it looks biblical, right? So we have Tucker Carlson, and he came out.
A little dirt devil of fire, yeah.
Yeah, like Tucker Carlson came out, and he said it's like, well, a lot of my opposition are blaming global warming, but I think it's because of abortions. And I'm looking, you know, like I'm looking like behind him because like he's in a studio.
If you're a demagogue that really believes in that shit, yeah. I mean, this is an exact this is the art you would put in the background when you're putting in your like, end of the world cult shit on YouTube, right?
Exactly. Like if I was a firebrand preacher and I was warning people about the consequences of blaspheming, what the Sodoma and Gomorrah looks like, I would probably have like the picture of Hollywood burning in the background. You know?
Yeah, it's. I mean, just that picture that you showed there with that environmental goddamn issue. Like all that's missing is like lightning in the background, and it's like the Mayans predicted this with their calendar 2,000 years ago, and here we are today. The clock is running out. Like holy shit.
But then you know, I actually thought a little bit about what he said, and I was like, you know. Is he full of shit though? And I was trying to analyze it from like a non-religious perspective. And you're looking at the morality of California. And recently, I seen TikTok videos that are fetishizing abortion. Like we're not talking about being pro-choice. Like literally women that are like, look how much weight I lost before and after, you know, or. Oh, I found out that I'm pregnant and I'm so sorry. Just kidding. I just scheduled an appointment. Then she shows that she's drinking wine, right? Like treating this not as
very
something
glib. Yeah, very glib, very loose, very casual.
Glib,
like abortion for whatever reasons as it is, right? At
Buy
the end
one,
of the
get
day,
one free, yeah.
Yeah, BOGO abortions. My God.
Right. So
treat the life with respect.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Come on, man.
Like, again, I'm from Europe. Like, we have abortions here, but we treat it with a little bit more decorum, you know? Yeah. But there seems to be no such thing with the Democrats. And so...
No, but it's like nuisance streaming, right? It's the outrage of it that seems to attract a lot of goddamn eyes.
Yeah,
but people that are looking to justify their own choices or whatever the fuck.
And so... If this is the case, right, like if a society doesn't have a moral compass when it comes about protecting the young, like again, there were like lawmakers that were suggesting that if a woman has like mental issues, like even before the contractions, like she should be able to get an abortion. And I was like, oh, come the fuck on, you know, like that is extremist, even for America standards. Like nowhere else in the world would something like this be allowed. And so, if you don't have like a moral compass about that, how can you have moral compass about other issues? And so, like,
how trivial can you get with that? So that's kind of a serious subject to begin with, right?
And so, like, it's no wonder it's like, okay, well, they're trying to protect a little fish rather than consider saving lives. They don't want to do controlled burns. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. You know, they're focusing on getting the firefighters to be as progressive as possible and to look like you. And it's like,
that's a whole other crazy ball game all to itself, man.
Yeah, like an entire moral compass is fucked. So like maybe Tucker, without actually knowing, without actually wanting to say this, maybe he does have a fucking point. It's like, well, yeah, like if your moral compass is fucked with this one, like how can you have a moral compass on things that are more complex?
Yeah, because like in my opinion, and strictly my opinion, Tucker Carlson has a lot of really gonzo opinions. But at the end of the day, he's using the opinion to color code. He's like a powder coat on top of a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to what he's coding.
Yeah.
Instead, right? Not the color. Look at the base, and the base is that California has a lot of goddamn shit that's wrong with it, and the budget that's currently being allocated to tend to these issues is not being tendered in a way that's mature and sober enough to be able to take care of the problems. Because if the fire issues, right, there's underbrush and, like you said, control cutting, control burns that you can do to help prevent some of this shit. Look at the amount of money, like that's its own other thing. If you take a look at some of the YouTubers that are talking about how money was moved before this California situation took place, there's a lot of really suspect shit that happened in the months before the fire season came around, and they already know what fire season is in California. This isn't their first their first boogaloo.
I love the name,
right?
Fire season. It's like in Ukraine you have mud season.
Yeah, the rainy season.
In other places you have rain season.
Yeah, like all of this money that was spent in diversity education, diversity initiatives, and so on and so forth, and the salaries for these people could have been used for more engines, more flyovers, more preventive control, actual shit that works.
Well,
right?
The problem they're having, as I understand, like California is surrounded by the Sahara Desert and there's no water, right? So how can you get water in order to spray the fire? It's
oh man, they live in the mountains. There's a lot of runoff, and not only that, but California has one of probably the most abundant desalination programs ever, right?
But the thing is, like, to put out fires, you don't really need like desalinated water. You just need water.
You gotta be
right?
careful about like you use anything that you get. But the whole deal is that it is the richest state in the entire fucking union, and they take no steps whatsoever to remedy this problem, right? Like if they take the least amount of improvement possible from year to year, and then they just horse over the budget each year. Like they had 14 point something million dollars that they were supposed to use for actual equipment that just got moved somewhere else.
Well, you know what Gavin Newsom says?
Oh boy.
We should.
Every time he opens his mouth, something interesting comes out. So
we shouldn't politicize this.
Oh no! Heaven forbid we actually talk about a problem, right? Oh. It's just I don't get it, man. Like it's fire, right? The environmental impact, the actual land impact, the capability for insurance to be correctly applied. Like there are so many individual industrial and business layers that get affected by this, and no one in their government seems to actually take it seriously. It pisses me off.
Do you know why he did after saying that we shouldn't politicize this?
I haven't seen it. So what?
He
what
politicized
did
it. Basically, yeah, from my understanding,
what did he do?
Well, from my understanding, like Trump was there in his first term, right? And he said something like, "You guys need to start doing control burns. Like you're going to get California burned to the ground, and it's sad because it's such a beautiful place. It's very beautiful, and you need to start doing those control burns. You need to figure out how to get the water." And this was like in his first presidency, right? And now that California is burning, like people were saying, well, Trump is blaming you for not listening to him. And he's like, this is not the time to politicize this. I have so much to say. But I won't even say it. I spoke with a real president, with President Joe Biden. Like summoning the name, like all of a sudden someone remembered that Joe Biden still is. The White House.
Treating him like Voldemort. What the fuck?
and like, okay, so you're saying you shouldn't politicize it, but then you name Joe Biden and you're like a real president. So like, you're politicizing it.
Let's not politicize this. So I was talking with Palpatine. And...
Well, it's not even that, right? Because part of my job is to read the news constantly. and I haven't heard the name Joe Biden being mentioned in forever. Like I have heard Trump a lot, which is normal.
No,
Like,
man, he like flew under the clouds after the whole Kamala thing.
yeah, I see. That's a name that I heard. Like people do talk about Kamala, but they never talk about Joe Biden, which begs the question: who the fuck is leading the White House now?
Well, right now during the transition period, I believe that it should be the middle government because the 6th passed. The certification's on the 20th, right?
But they're passing
The
like
certification
such...
passed. I should say the inauguration is on the 20th or something like
They're
that.
still passing important legislation. Like they managed to pass more aid to Ukraine. They allowed Ukrainians to fire missiles into Russia.
Yes, but these are all things that were being discussed before a certain date. Right now, it's just a handholder government, right?
Oh,
like very rarely are these things that are being passed being discussed in even the same week. We're talking about shit that was probably started off last quarter, and they're just tying off the loose ends, right?
Yeah. Cinderwood, thank you for being the first super chat. LA needed to clear land for the Olympics. Oh my god, they are hosting it. Holy shit. Can you imagine if the Olympics was next year? Oh my god.
The Olympics in LA again. Holy god.
It won't be more gay than France.
That's true.
Like they at least know how to keep the gay in. Like you'll have some rainbow flags and shit, but you won't have like the whole
It won't be more gay than France, and it won't be as intense as Beijing. That's.
Oh my god, you won't have the drummers. Like I notice how women like don't get why men were so terrified of the drummers, and it's like, listen, woman. Alright, to get 1,000 people to bang the fucking drum simultaneously, the level of logistics involved into doing that shit.
The coordination, training, the logistics, the influence that you have to get 1,000 people and their backups in the event any of them get hurt or sick or anything like that. That's the kind of shit that shows, if we really need to, we can move a mountain.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, look, I don't want to fight those people. Like I don't know what happens on the international scale, but like you're going to be at home, and if I get deployed, I hope I'm not going to have to fight those people because it scares the living shit out of me.
Do you know what I saw on that screen? I saw 1,000 strapping young men ready in military age, and I just took a look behind in my backyard, and I saw a bunch of gravy seals. There's a lot of people who don't like that mathematics, man.
Not a bad account. California Congress emergency session means to stop Trump. That would be so hilarious if that's what they're talking right now, and I wouldn't be able to put it past them.
Again, where's the priority? Yeah.
Ministry of Wrong Thing, $5. Look up the video of that guy being interviewed in the media. Oh, okay, right. Hold on. I won't read your super chat. Instead, I'll describe it. So I want you to imagine this, source, right? You're Fox News, and you're interviewing the Californian hellscape. And like behind you, like mountains just scorched.
Yeah, you have a scene from Constantine in the background. Yeah.
And there's this guy comes up, and it's like the news anchor like, what do you think is happening here? God is punishing us because of the gays.
Armageddon is upon us. The gates of hell have opened.
No.
All we're missing is the Doom guy. Like shit.
No. He said on Fox News, right? God is punishing us because of homosexuals. And the interviewer goes immediately, okay.
All right, let's go. So in other news, he said that straight on camera live.
Yeah.
Oh man, the 7 second censor there must have been having a bad day.
It went viral immediately.
Yeah, because there's always a 7-second guy that's in between the live stream and what they call the broadcast car, right? That they can push a button and cut if they need to. So that guy must have been sleeping at the wheel.
Well, The View needs some things to talk about, so.
I mean, that's certainly gonna spark a discussion. That's for sure. Holy shit!
Trump must be held responsible for the LA fires. I'm sure it's his fault somehow.
They're gonna try to paint it as the TDS in them is going to try to paint it that way. That's
I mean, they have a lot of experts in TDS, so yeah. Only 2. I don't get out of bed for less than 200,000, says the Nothium. That's that was like a Romanian politician. He was being caught on a hidden mic saying that he doesn't get out of bed for $5,000. In other words, like, he is corrupt, but you gotta pay him properly. And so
there's a minimum entry, a two drink minimum for the quid pro quo.
and so like, I remember like political commentators in Romania during that time being like, look, I understand that some corruption is inevitable and like there is a level of acceptable corruption, but like, I'm not going to ask him to like get out of bed for free as a politician, like, far from it, but like, can he try and get out of bed for 2,500? Because we're in an inflation right now.
Yeah,
so, like,
lower the bar a little bit. Let more people into the club.
Just get out of bed for like 2,500. Come on, like, we're not being unreasonable. Kurt Russell movie Escape from LA predicted this. You know what movie predicted this? I want you guys to watch Demolition Man, and literally the opening scene.
Yes.
Is exactly as if it's like watching CNN live right now. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Not a band account in your super chat there says also Escape from LA, Kurt Russell movie. Yes, it even references that the place was razed during the climate wars or some shit like that.
The climate wars! Speaking of Hollywood, there's a lot of actors right now not finding much sympathy. But
there's a big tone change in Hollywood in general there. The nature is healing.
Well, but one of the actors that I found quite bewildering is a man by the name of Digimon Honosu. Now, you guys probably don't know the name, but I'm sure, like, if you see the face, I'll show you the visage of this person.
Yeah, show me who this is.
I think I showed you on before the stream. It's the black gentleman, right? And apparently he's very upset right now. He is upset because it's hard for him to make a living. He says that he's being paid poorly. I've been in this business making films now for over 2 decades with 2 Oscar nominations. Been in many blockbuster films, and yet I'm still struggling financially. So I'm like, okay, well, how much is he getting paid? Like, what does struggling financially mean? He has a net worth of $35 billion. Like, oh, fuck off.
Struggling financially. Suck a dick.
Like, fuck off. $35 billion. And
like,
you're
even
struggling
if he has
financially.
10%, even if only 10% of that was somehow mobile, like it wasn't soaked up in debt or something, just the interest on that 3.5.
Yeah.
Just the interest on it. Come on.
Yeah. Like, maybe you should hire better financial advisors. Hire Oris here. He will tell you how to spend your wealth.
Crying because he can't buy the latest Prada. Oh no.
Yeah.
Shed a goddamn tear.
Mark Hamill is upset.
Mark Hamill? Yeah. Oh no.
I think hold on, let me check. Did his house burn down? Because like I think his house burned down. Mark Hamill.
Yeah, fires. The fires affect everyone, but Mark Hamill likes the wine, man.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not going to laugh at Hollywood actors that had their houses burned down because
burn home is traumatic no matter who you are, man.
Yeah, like even if you're a rich person, even if you can buy it back, it's no. But the thing that I'm laughing is not the event, but like how people are reacting to it. Many are just not caring, and it's like, well, you gotta foster a lot of bad will, like you gotta foster a lot of animosity from the people. So that when your house burns down, no one cares.
Yeah, 15 years ago, this wouldn't have been the case. 15 years ago, someone posted on social media that their house burned down, like a celebrity and shit.
Yeah.
It would be the universal fawning.
Imagine this. Gaur Gura's house burned down. Imagine how people would react.
Man, we would have like Muujin and Hiro Hey and everyone putting out like 5 or 6 videos about it, and plus the reactions.
Dude, there would be a crowdfunding. Even if she's rich, like even if she's a millionaire, it doesn't fucking matter. There would be like crowdfunding that would pop up. It's like, let's help Gura through this difficult situation.
Yeah.
Right?
It definitely would happen.
And I think like this would have happened back in the day when Hollywood was popular. Like if Arnold's house would burn down or some shit. Like people would be like, well, that's horrible. Maybe not Arnold, because he got into politics, right? So like that's different. But like let me think of an act. Eddie Murphy, right? Like Eddie Murphy's house burned down. Like you would have people being like, "Oh my god, that's so sad," and they would try to raise money and send him flowers and send him gifts and shit.
Yep.
But like now, people don't care.
Now there's straight up animosity. I mean, you always get a couple of Starfucker wannabes that are gonna, that are gonna fawn over it and basically dick ride. But you get to see a lot more neutral to cold responses, just basically saying, yeah, okay, like you're not gonna get sympathy from us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've been seeing that not just on Twitter, but on Blue Sky a hell of a lot more.
Are you on Blue Sky as well?
Only to follow a couple of artists that I like, but because of the way the feeds work over there, you get a lot of side noise. But just in general, there's a lot of celebs are getting. I like to call it their just rewards. Their due in this case. But it's colder. The response is colder. Like, you take a look at the threads and the replies, and there's more. Yeah, there's more friction than there used to be.
Yeah,
I don't know what the term is. I'm struggling to find the right word for it.
Do you know who actually got sympathy for this?
I have no idea.
Mel Gibson.
Gibson?
Yeah, he went on Joe Rogan podcast, right? And he, like, the difference between actors, I think, is that you got someone like Gibson that knows how to talk to the common folk. Like you get the vibe. Yeah, like, you get the vibe that if you met Gibson, you could actually talk about current shit, like not political, not nothing. You can just hang out, basically.
Yeah, like 8 p.m. at an airport overnight stay or something. You meet Mel Gibson at a bar. You could probably have a 2-hour conversation with the guy about whatever the hell. He's got a brain that's actually down to earth.
Yeah, and he would probably understand what you're going through. You talk about your car and how the engine doesn't start, and he would probably like have something to say about that. Yeah. But then you have like other actors, like the guy that played the Star Wars guy that we just talked about.
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill, right. Like, with Mark Hamill, I have the feeling that he just doesn't understand the common folk.
No. Look at how candid his shots are when he's going through interviews that aren't pre-planned or some shit like that. Right? He says he knows how to talk to the average convention floor geek. Mm-hmm. But then when you actually listen to his takes and you read what he posts and how he posts it, his head is like, it's filled with something else than helium-3, man, but his head is up in the clouds somewhere, because he's missing a very normal perspective, or a ground level perspective, that if he had actually struggled during his life, he would understand. But you got to understand as well that Hamill's perspective on life was twisted by the fact that he became famous, and unilaterally famous for one role at a very young age.
Well, he also played the Joker, and he did a good job. The voice.
Well, he voice acted the Joker. Yeah. I'm talking about physical acting, right? Everywhere that he goes, he gets referred to as the same thing, and that can give a person a very skewed perspective.
Yeah, same with George Takei. Just so you can understand how
that's another great example of someone with a very skewed fucking perspective.
Yeah, like, just so you can understand how disconnected Hollywood is from the rest of the world. I watched one of the Oscars. It was like years back, and they all got a goodie bag. So, like, just for attending, you had the goodie bag. I think this was actually during COVID, right? Like, literally, all the staff were wearing masks. Every single member of the auxiliary staff was wearing masks. The only people not wearing masks were the actors themselves. So, like, without wanting, you're creating this image, the optic of a power status, right? Like, the aristocracy.
One step up, one step down.
Yeah, like, literally, you're creating this idea that the aristocracy get to have their faces uncovered, while everyone around them has to cover up. Because, like, the idea of a mask at the time was, like, you're not wearing it to protect yourself, you're wearing it to protect others.
Protect others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, everyone
it takes
around...
away the idea of personal agency and personal choice.
Yeah.
A very clever way of doing it, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, everyone around is there to protect the actors, because they're the ones that matter, right? And they would have a goodie bag on top of that for attending. I think it was like a $5,000 in total. And some of the things there were like a little hammer that you can use to break a car window in order to save a dog that was left in the car during the summer heat. And I'm thinking, like, well, that's bourgeois as fuck. And you're basically having all these people at this gala, and they kicked off all of the homeless people before the gala, right? Like before having that started, like they had the security and they kicked off all the homeless there.
Break up all the camps, move them all 6 streets down. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then they go there and they talk about social justice and they lecture yours on why you're a piece of shit, why you're a problem
right, they do.
because you're having your air conditioning, because you're driving your car, because you're not anti-racist enough.
Oh man, we're not even driving our cars now. Oh wait, well here, mind if I change the subject just before I go?
Yeah,
V?
go on.
All right, so I'm going to leave you with a interesting thought before I go today, V.
Mm.
Did you know that currently GoFundMe is the biggest medical insurer in the United States?
Really?
Yep, there is more money currently and more campaigns currently opened up for existing medical bills in the United States via GoFundMe than there are actual claims coming in from relevant insurance providers right now.
Do you know what I think about medical insurance? Because I actually thought about it a lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I also went to med school, and I realized that, like, medicine is not like any other commodity. Like, if I want to buy a TV, I go to the store, I look at various TVs, I compare the prices, I compare the specs, and I may not even buy a TV, right? Like, I maybe say, like, well, there's nothing I want. But if you have an appendicitis, you're going to go to the closest doctor. Like, you can't really choose your doctor. You don't get the opportunity in all the situations.
Yeah, it depends. Depending on who your provider is, they might even mandate that you go to a certain center, what they call in-system services or in-service centers. I should say.
No. Let's not talk about providers. Let's talk about medicine as a whole, right? Like as a.
Oh yeah.
Like before insurance.
In this case, here, the provider decides where you get your medicine too.
Yeah. Right, and so like it's a system that is different than all the others. But my question though is that a perfect system? Because you look at Canada, right? Like Canada, okay, sure, you get to pay for it and you get quality healthcare, but you have like really long waiting queues, right?
I can't say that's true. I've had my fair share, and a lot of family members with their fair share of medical things. Some people wait for some things, but generally speaking, the wait ain't really that long. Like my ear surgery when I had to get that cybernetic piece put into my eardrum, right?
In Romania, if I wanted, I'd get it tomorrow.
You would see a specialist, and then they would evaluate. Like in my case, I waited 1 year for the specialist.
That's insane, dude. That's insane. 1 year, like
it wasn't critical. I wasn't asking it for it to be tomorrow. I said, my ear doesn't work. Is there something that can be done? And they took a look at it and they said, yeah, we can do a tympanoplasty and put in a brand new eardrum. And I told them, okay, schedule me whenever. 1 year later, I went through and it cost me $0.
I think like here you would have got it in like 1 month or so.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could have pushed the issue, like saying it was affecting my job. But when I spoke to my specialist, I told him like this is just a cosmetic thing, right? I don't need it for work. I don't need it to drive. I'm not in any danger. Just schedule it whenever.
What about other issues though? Like, is this always the case?
So, well, yeah, for my eye and for my ear, the eye took 1 week. The ear took 1 year.
People in the chat
eye
are
issue was a lot more.
People in the chat are laughing at the 1 year thing.
Well, I mean, that's what you get if you're not giving a reason. Like, unless you tell the doctor this is really affecting me, they don't put you into the acute line. They put you into the cosmetic line.
Well, okay, maybe.
Here, let me flip let me flip it to a different situation. One of my uncles was suffering from a serious problem down on one of his legs, a problem between the knee and the ankle. It wasn't something that could be diagnosed readily, right? But when he went to complain about it, he got his surgery within the next 2 days. Right? There's a severity to it, and remember that when you listen to a story about someone waiting for a long time, you also have to take into consideration what was communicated and also where the person was. Like if they're a dude all the way up in Nunavut and they're complaining that they weren't able to get a certain type of, say, like a bone corrective surgery or whatever the fuck, like say a realignment. Well, was there even a specialist up there kind of thing? It's not perfect. Perfection in these kinds of systems
Yeah,
is
that's what I was trying to
logistically
get at.
impossible,
But
right? You
like
have to provide
yeah,
the best
you're
with what you
offering a more
have.
nuanced opinion than what I usually hear. Because like usually I hear a
Yeah.
lot of Canadians complaining. It's like, dude, it takes me
Yeah, well,
months to see my family doctor.
I have the benefit of having audited the actual sector before as
Mm-hmm.
well, right? So I get a different perspective of it. But I'll put it this way: versus how much we pay, every Canadian benefits from the medical system in there. It ain't
Can you
perfect
choose
by a
not to
long
be
shot.
insured though? Like, what if I just don't want any coverage whatsoever?
Yeah, yeah. Like, you get taxed for just the basic service insurance, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like any other additional insurance above the standard Medicare,
No, but like I
that's
want
up to you to
nothing, no
get.
coverage.
Well, no, it's part of your civic tax,
Yeah, I guess.
right? It's not. There's no tax that says medical tax, right?
Ah,
It's all
okay.
part of your. It's all part of
Right,
your
right, right.
service
Because
tax.
this is what I was complaining about in Romania. I don't know like exactly how the system works. We got like a public and a private system, but like
Yep.
unlike America, like a CSEC here isn't like $50,000.
Yeah, but I mean, we
So-
have a private system here. Like I live in Quebec, we have a private system here as well,
yeah.
right? I could have went to the private guy for my ear, and I would have paid maybe around $7,500 in total for the entire thing, and my insurance would have paid for it. But
Hmm.
I didn't feel the need. I took the year wait because I didn't feel the need like it needed to be rushed. But the system that we have in Canada it also has a private sector, right? So you can go public or you can go private. So it leaves it to the consumer.
But like one of
I
the
I
things
kind
here
of
in
like
Eastern
the
Europe that we hated is, and a lot of doctors were complaining about this as well behind closed doors. Um, why is it fair or equitable that I live a healthy life, I stay away from drinking, smoking, and other things,
Yep.
and then you have like someone else that has heavy drinking issues and heavy smoking issues, and we gotta pay for his healthcare. Like I understand like paying for someone that has a kid with leukemia or something that
Hmm.
couldn't be helped, but
Yeah,
when you
but
have
you,
someone
you don't
like
you don't
getting
pay different,
no,
right?
but it's
The
like
amount.
my money goes there, right? Like because maybe
Mhm.
those people would be more responsible if they had to pay from their pockets, right?
Yeah, they definitely could, but at the end of the day, right, when you have a service for everyone, you have like the service and the cost of the service is already calculated and designed that there are going to be both ends of the bell curve, right? Most
No,
people
I
will
get
will
what you're
rely on the
saying.
center.
No, it's the principle, right? Like we're not talking about the system as itself. We're talking about the morality of the
Oh
system,
yeah, yeah, I know. We're
right?
talking about the cost benefit
No,
analysis
no,
for
no,
a
not
person
even
that's in the
that. Not
middle
even that.
looking at
It's
one
like,
end, right?
why is it moral that some people get to stay healthy and make sacrifices so that they don't pay, but they end up paying for someone else that lives a life that doesn't make the same sacrifices? If that makes sense.
Yeah. And on the other side as well, what about the people who have medical issues which aren't of their own
No,
like
because like we
inflection,
understand
right?
those, right? Like as I mentioned, like no one would be
Oh
upset
yeah, yeah.
if you pay for like someone that has a kid with leukemia. Like that's different.
Mhm.
But like if there's a person that is getting treatment for hepatitis because he's got liver damage from alcohol, and then he
Yeah.
goes home and starts drinking again, right?
Yeah, that's
Like
that's its own thing.
that,
That's
that
it.
that's what
But
that's what pisses people off.
definitely. But it's like what you told me a while back regarding politicians, right? In any working system, there has to be a little bit of dirt,
Oh
right?
yeah, but in Eastern
And
Europe, there's a lot of dirt with that. Like even for
yeah, it's different.
Ministry of Wrongthing, $5. Canada healthcare is so good. They've been caught recommending euthanasia through MAID for depression.
Yeah,
See,
if you
this
take
is
actual look at those stories, right, the doctors who and specialists who are actually suggesting MAID without meeting the justification criteria, because there is a list of things that have to be passed before you suggest MAID. If a doctor or a service technician or whatever the fuck offers you MAID before those criteria are met, it's against the policy of Canada, and they usually get brought forward to the ombudsman for it.
here's the
So
thing
those
with
a
MAID,
lot of the
right?
maid stories, are embellished horseshit.
No, I think you may be right. I think some of them are, some of them may not be because like they were
Yeah, there's
reported
going to be
in
bad in
mainstream journals.
everything, but a lot of the stories are very,
But
very
here's
misleading.
my take with MAID, right? Like first one is like if it's actually painless, I press yes to
Ah,
doubt.
I don't think I would say we don't know enough about the process right now, and we've seen enough wrong events to know that it's not perfect. I don't believe that the process for made is painless. Not by a long shot.
Me neither, right?
Yeah.
But like, let's talk about the concept. Like, should there such a service exist? And my opinion, 100% yes. I would like it because I have seen people die from cancer. Like my mom died from cancer.
Yeah, I was about to say I've had one boss and two family members deal with pancreatic cancer, and yeah,
Yeah,
made
and,
would
and
have
I gotta
helped.
say, if given the choice, right,
Yeah.
I wish it was there. Like, if you could go to the hospital and when the time comes, and the time comes, it's like when you're not going to have another good day.
Yeah.
Like when you know that there's not going
When
to
your
be another
quality
good
of
day.
life is really that low, like your body becomes a trap, right?
Yes.
It becomes a really really painful prison, and I mean, I'm getting the little cold shakes, and I'm thinking back to one of my uncles in particular who really suffered before even like him and on top of it. The whole deal is that he's also a very devout Catholic. So the whole suicide thing, or I can't say that on well, the whole
No, you can. Yeah.
self-regulation thing
But
was a big contentious issue, right? But
but like, here's
the
my problem.
suffering that it can provide, the suffering that it can avoid, though, sometimes it
No,
could
because
have
we agree
benefit.
on this. Like, we agree on principle. Like, it's a good thing to have, and there are people who are suffering, and this should be an option. I agree. But why can't people just let it fucking go? It's like, okay, there's an option for people that are terminally ill, period. No, they start
Yeah.
expanding it. It's like, but like, what about people with mental illness? But what about people with this? But what about people with that? But why can't we
Yeah,
expand? Why can't? And it's like, oh my fucking god, you're going to get rid of it if you keep doing this shit.
yeah. There's like there should be checks and balances, right? Making sure the person is at least cognitive and understanding what they're asking and what they're going to be doing and why they're doing it. But like, determination is supposed to be one of our freedoms that we're supposed to have as humans, right?
Yeah, well, again, it's just that when you say that a lot of stuff were reported by the media and they were horseshit, okay, fine. But you
Yeah.
go on Twitter. Hold on, you go on Twitter, and you see hundreds of people defending the horseshit. So, like, from their moral perspective, like, even if that happened, that wouldn't be a problem. And like, oh, come on.
Yeah, well, a lot of people well, I mean, you've been on Twitter long enough, you know how social media goes. A lot of people echo shit because they feel like they need to justify it to themselves.
Oh yeah, but they vote, right?
Do they?
I think so. Todd, for $10. My conspiracy is that the LA fires are on purpose to the insurance fraud, as you know. Hollywood is overestimating the value of their homes before they flee the US. I've heard that insurance companies did pull back, so I don't know what the fuck
Yeah,
was
a number of them, not all of them in California. Three major ones pulled back about 2 months ago or so.
No.
Kind of like what they did in Florida this summer. A couple of them quietly just terminated policies and then just basically said, "Oh, well, eat shit."
Well,
Basically, whenever these
it
terms
was
came
the
in.
end of the fiscal year, right? So like, it wouldn't be that conspiratorial.
Yeah, this right now for most American companies with the months that we're in right now are the final three of the fiscal year, which flips over in March.
And on top of that, like, there's changes in leadership with Donald Trump. So like, I
Mhm.
wouldn't say it's a conspiracy. Um,
And not only that, but the changes in legislation that might get pushed in just before the transition happens as well. There's a lot of reasons for insurance companies to move around like this.
Democrat PAC Act Blue are fundraising of LA fires now. I heard about that. I think Elizabeth
Yeah,
Warren was pushing a website, and she was like advocating for it. But like, if you donate there, it goes to Act Blue.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's sneaky as hell. Sneaky as hell.
And that doesn't
Oh,
surprise me.
one thing I wanna shout out there. I see Lazy One having written in your chat. Can't wait for Ubisoft and the end of fiscal year report. Oh baby, that get your popcorn ready for that because when your market cap goes sub 60% of your total
Oof.
expenditures in the course of 1 year, that company is already underwater right now. It's only a matter of time until they figure out who's going to leverage and who's going to buy out.
Are they going to sell IPs?
I don't know.
What
The
exactly
whole
do they
Star
have
Wars
that they can
thing.
even sell though?
Well, they can't like the things with Star Wars. They can't sell,
Well,
right?
yeah, they can sell Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, subletted or delicensed IPs. They can't sell out. the Assassin's Creed thing is more or less owned by them and by the écrivain, the author that originally created the series.
Mm-hmm.
There's a payment out to those guys as well,
Prince
so the
of Persia,
residuals have to be.
Anno. What else do they have? They have
Yeah,
Siege,
I know that's like how would they sell it? Who would they sell it to? Because the team that they would sell it to would have to pick it up.
4X.
For Prince of Persia, yeah, for Prince of Persia and for like Assassin's Creed and all, those have canon universes behind them that can be expanded on with merchandise and shit like that, right?
Oh, do you know what they
So
own?
what?
Heroes of Might and Magic.
Oh my God, they're not just a publisher. That's right.
They own Heroes of Might and Magic. And they don't do anything with it. It's baffling. I bet Paradox Games would love Heroes of Might and Magic.
They probably would. I don't know how well current Paradox would deal with it right now because they've been flubbing pretty hard with the City Skylines too. But it's a powerful ass IP, and people love the 4X element in it.
And do you know what else they have? Like they made a trading card game with Heroes.
Oh yeah, did they? Let me
Yeah,
guess,
yeah,
NFTs.
it was before Hearthstone. Yeah, it didn't really catch on because it was expensive and their free to play model was non-existent.
Yeah.
But they did have like this thing where you could and they had like some sexy genies there and shit. And I remember like you would pick a castle and you had like a deck. So like instead of like the colors white, black, red, green, you would just pick, academy or dungeon or whatever.
Yeah, and it would generate your resources based on that.
Yeah, and you basically like it was similar to Magic the Gathering, a little bit more simple though. But yeah, no, like they had some IPs. Prince of Persia is really great. But other than that, like the problem with Ubisoft is they generally don't have cool shit.
No,
Splinter
they
Cell, do they own it?
no, Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy, huh?
Yeah, that's a subletted
Mm.
IP. They can. That's why whenever you take a look at the later Splinter Cells, they went away from Sam Fisher and shit like that because they were trying to get away from the owned residuals for having used characters from a creator that had the intellectual rights to those characters. Same reason why you see a bunch of stuff from Disney and Netflix getting delisted after they prove to be unsuccessful is so that they can stop paying residuals.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, there's a whole way and a whole accounting as to how those IPs are allowed to continue to exist and continue to be sold. There's a nominal amount of money that gets moved around no matter what.
Well, from what I'm talking with people at Ubisoft, they're saying that a lot of their money was coming from government grants and shit, like
Yes.
tax cuts, government subsidies,
And
grants.
creation grants, subsidy
Uh,
grants, DEI grants. Yes.
yeah, they also had like cheap loans with the DEI shit.
Yeah, and also incentivized studio creation from places like Malaysia and Singapore and so on.
And so basically, they're saying that even with the losses, like they will just shut down some of their studios, but like they will still be able to continue.
Yeah, think of it. Think of all of those second spigots of money, right? Instead of having direct revenue, right? You use these government programs for money. It's basically gorging yourself on a bunch of financial McDonald's, right? You
Yes.
get big and fucking fat. You hire hundreds of workers and dozens of different studios across the world, basically trying to apply for as many grants as you can to help keep those places afloat. And then when you see that they start actually, like, you need to actually start pulling their weight against your own budget, then you can just shed the weight. You go on the
Yeah.
equivalent of a Ubisoft keto diet, and you basically lose the pounds and
Do,
then
do you
sell
know?
it
Do you know
to
who
and sell
did
it as
this
soap.
very effectively?
Uh,
Uh,
didn't Microsoft do it?
No. Have you heard about a movie director called Yu Bol?
Oh my God, I hate that guy.
Yeah,
But
you hate
yeah,
that
yeah,
guy,
yeah, I
right?
know
Like
who
for
he
those
is.
of you who don't know, back in the day, there were no such thing as good movies that
Good
would
game
adapt from
movies.
video games, right? Like good video
Yeah.
game, yeah, good movies from video games, not good video games.
Yeah.
And
U
so,
Bowl
like,
is a
you
whole
would
other
have Yu
thing.
Bol, and Yu Bol would be like, "Oh, I'm going to make the Blood Rain movie," and everyone was hyped because like Blood Rain was really cool. And then you get to see it, and it's nothing like the game. Like they're
Look at
just
what he did with Dead or Alive.
yeah, Dead or Alive, or what else did they touch? He touched Dungeons and Dragons. He touched
Yeah, that's right.
Postal. Postal actually was a good one. Like, he actually made a
Yeah,
good
it
Postal.
was palpable. It
It
was
was
palpable.
palpable. Yeah. Alone in the Dark, complete shite. But
Yeah.
anyway, right? Like the thing was, it became.
Who made oh fuck, there was one game that came out okay. Who made the Street Fighter movie? It wasn't Ubol,
Oh
right?
no, that was before.
Yeah.
But anyway, right? Like I wanted to say about Ubol, it's like it became known that. Sorry about it.
Hey, bless.
Yeah, it became known that every movie that he makes is going to be atrocious and awful, right? So like people were wondering, like, why does he keep making movies? And it turns out that the German government at the time had the program that if you're making a movie at a loss, you're getting paid by the government in order to incentivize, like German creators.
Cultural creation.
Yeah. And so, like, he was making them bad by default. And like, what ends up happening is that he gets enough money, opens his own restaurant. Now he is alive and well, retired, just swimming in wealth, fucking bitches. And he doesn't give a shit, right? Like, and this is probably what's happening with Ubisoft. Like, they're making bad games on purpose. They're making money from grants, tax cut-offs, all that stuff. Their CEOs are making wealth. They're getting paid. And so they're going to retire, open their own restaurants or whatever.
Oh well, here's the fun part, because I really gotta go, V. I really gotta go. So I'll add this before I go.
Right.
Yves Guillemot right now is in discussion with Tencent, because if you take a look at the actual cost per share right now of Ubisoft, it is in a prime position for a internal hostile takeover, which means that they drive the stock price down to the point where it's basically either dollars per stock or pennies per stock instead of like $50 to $100 like it used to. And then you buy back a bunch of the liquidated stock that other people are getting rid of because it's been on a downward trend. It's supposed to be, and especially illegal. It's supposed to be, and it's especially illegal in France because Ubisoft is registered in Europe, right?
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to purposefully harm your shareholders. That's grand larceny in its own sense, right? But the whole deal is that right now Ubisoft has been pushed into a position where it is like it assuming, because like you said, they have a lot of fantastic IPs. There's a lot of potential in there that people do love those IPs, and if there was a good product made of it, it would immediately resurge. You know it, I know it.
Yeah.
A good classic Assassin's Creed, a non-retarded Prince of Persia, a good Tom Clancy, like a new like inversion of, say, Rainbow Six or whatever the heck, or even a better version of The Division. Even The Division 1 was really good for them at the start.
I think so, yeah.
Right?
Didn't you,
the resurgence would happen. But
since you gotta go, I just want to ask one question before you leave. Aren't you worried that China is taking over the entertainment?
Tencent? They're already probably
let's see,
40% ingrained in most media companies right now. Tencent
not
is
even
out there.
That. No, I'm not talking like behind the scenes. I'm talking like China as itself as a cultural hallmark. Like they made Wukong last year, right? Just mind blown everything out of the water. Path of Exile 2 is owned by China, which again, Marvel.
It's made by Grinding Gear, who's a New Zealand company, but is owned almost entirely by Tencent.
Marvel on Steam is the Overwatch that should be.
Yeah.
And then this year they're making a Grand Theft Auto game with anime girls.
Yes, they are.
And they also made the Genshin Impact, right? And so I think
Hoyo has like 6 lines currently running.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, dude, the reason Eastern Europeans love America so much is that all of our culture was American, from TV shows, songs, movies, Hollywood, video games, everything was American. So now, even though there wasn't propaganda there, it's like, look at how developed the Americans are. Like, look how powerful their technology is to create all these cool stuff. And then you have, like, people today that love Japan. They're weebs. Like, they love the anime girls. They love all that shit. Even though they never been to Japan, they like Japan to the point that if a politician in America would shit-talk Japan, they'd be like, hey, why are you shit-talking Japan? And
that's right.
Now imagine if your kids grow up with Chinese shit.
Man, I remember when I was in school, the weebs that were growing up back then, right? Because there was really early weebdom. They were so Japanophile that when we actually started learning about the crazy shit Japan was actually doing pre-World War II,
they wouldn't believe
right? Because they were like there were some of them that were saying, no, that's not true. Japan would never do that because this and that. And it's
Yeah.
like, bitch, I don't know what Japan you think used to be before Weebdom had hit them, but they weren't the same country at all, brothers.
They were like frowning. They were like, no, Koteda.
Yeah.
But no, like,
Masakades.
yeah, no, like this is a legit cultural danger.
Yes.
And the reason it's happening is because like China used to make those shitty World of Warcraft clones. Like
Yes.
Marvel Heroes should be a shitty Overwatch clone. But
Yep.
like the West decided to self-sabotage. They decided to commit seppuku. It's like, let add skin cellulitis in our fucking game. Let's make the women look like Californian democratic monstrosities.
Yeah, wait till you take a look at the credits as to who created those games, and take a look at the strategically placed Western names inside those lists.
No,
They
I
have
know
they have the
that China
Chinese people making the big, I guess you could say workhorse moving of all the models and all that shit. But the people who are actually creating the core design, they're all coming in from old Western companies that they basically got boot fucked out of during the big
this
big
is
layoffs a
actually
couple of years
good.
ago.
Like I was seeing this in Britain, and I should let you go, but this is like, I promise. This
Yeah, my
like-
players are gonna freaking slap me around.
I was seeing this in Britain where they're like, oh, we're going to have like more non-white people, more diversity, more non-white people in the Air Force, more non. Do you know where the white people in the Air Force are going? They're going to
Russia
China.
and China for
Yeah, and it's like you get like all the skilled, competent white people from Britain that were in the military driving planes and driving subs and
Yes.
shit, and now they're going to China because they're getting paid there.
Yeah. Canada, the U.S., a big part of the EU, the U.K. are being hired by Philippines, Singapore, China, big deal, and Japan right now for a lot of training. There is a very, very healthy consultancy for like actual tactical military knowledge.
Insane. Go play Dungeons and Dragons. I allow it.
Thank you, V. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. Have a good
Thank
one,
you for
chat.
being here. I'll finish reading the super chats. Or maybe I would, because I don't think I got any new ones since the last. Let me check.
All right.
One.
I'll catch you in the next one, guys.
Yeah, I think we read all the super chats. So Vitiligo is glorious. RTX ray tracing. Man, it would be actually cool if they could justify it. It's like, okay, this rare skin disease works really great with NVIDIA 5090 Ti. And I would be like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. But like, to put vitiligo in all the fucking games for no fucking reason, it's just mind-blowing. And the people that have vitiligo themselves, they hate having vitiligo. Like the person themselves are not comfortable seeing themselves in the mirror, and I understand, because I wouldn't either. Right? And they use all sort of makeup to cover it up. It's kind of like, okay, if you're a man and you're starting to grow bald, right? And you're looking in the mirror, you don't like what you see. Like, you yourself don't like what you see. It's not that society teaches you or anything. It's like, it's not aesthetically pleasing, right? And why would you assume that, okay, well, if everyone is forced to see me, people will think that this is okay? Because at the end of the day, it is okay, but it's not aesthetic. Like, that's the difference, right? Like, it's not... I mean, there are people that look that way, but it's not pleasing to the retina. And so people that are bald, they either shave their entire head or they do certain things. But the last thing they would want to do is, like, they play a video game and they see themselves there to remind them constantly. It's like, hey, by the way, your aesthetics are off. People in a wheelchair want to walk. Believe it or not, most of the time, yes, but I have actually seen people in wheelchairs that do not want to walk. I don't know if they say it or it's because of other reasons. But I think it may be ideological indoctrination. Like, I genuinely think that they spend time on Tumblr or in Western universities where they were told that, like, not being able to walk is actually part of their identity. And so, if they were to play Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, like, they would want to play in a wheelchair in order to, I don't know, like, they would say, well, it makes me feel represented. But, like, I don't know if they genuinely think that, or is it, like, what they're saying because they were told to say that? Because, like, 20 years ago, I don't think anyone would have thought this way. Although, like, you know, I can understand one thing. Like, if you are born without being able to walk, so you have, like, a birth defect, and you're never able to walk, and you've been in a wheelchair your entire life, then maybe you generally don't know what it's like to be walking. And so, from that perspective, like if you're playing a fantasy game, I guess maybe you want to play in a wheelchair because you can't relate to how the other experience is like, if it makes sense, right? So like for those people, I understand. And the thing is, like, it was never an issue though. Like if someone is a friend of mine and he happens to be in a wheelchair and who wants to play D&D and he wants to play D&D in a wheelchair, I wouldn't be against that, right? Because when it's about being disabled, it can happen to literally anyone, right? Like anyone, you can get into a car crash tomorrow, and you can end up in a wheelchair. So it's not something that like just because you don't have it doesn't mean you want, or it's not something like even if you don't have it, maybe your kid gets born with a malformity and he has it, right? So like I'm okay with like making society to accommodate certain groups of people, but there is a level where you're starting to glorify it. Like rather than accepting that it's a challenge that some people have to deal with, and you treat it with like as much accommodation as you can, but like to create an entire identity around it and to start like glorifying it and promoting it, it's beyond disturbing. And I don't think any other ideology besides the woke ideology from recent years has ever done that. I was born disabled, but I would play as a healthy character in games anyway. Yeah, I mean, it depends from person to person. But again, I think like a lot of brainwashing has taken place in recent years, where again, like people were basically told that no, like this is part of your identity, and anyone that treats it differently is in the wrong. The best example of this is with autism. So now autism isn't something that's I don't know if I can call it mainstream, but basically I would say it's not in the spotlight as it used to be. There was a time where autism was actually considered as a superpower. I know it sounds batshit insane because it is, but there was like this trend before social justice, not before social justice, before identity politics, that people with autism are like really special. And there were a lot of movies and a lot of stuff. It's like autism is kind of like the next step in human evolution, where you're like having these individuals that their brain are like a supercomputer, right? And so like there were diversity initiatives for companies to hire people with autism. And if you want to see a reflection on that, Rain Man is one, but like there's also Predator. I think like not the last one that they did, but like there's the Predator movie where apparently the predators, they're not hunters, they're just coming to Earth to steal the genes from humans. And one of the kids there is an autistic child, and the predator like wants to steal autism from that kid. Like they want to kill the kid and extract his marrow, his genetics, and just get that autism gene onto the predator. Like I'm not kidding, like that's literally the plot of the movie. And the kid is able to like understand the alien language because of his autism. And so like you have this weird glorification of autism where you had before people putting pronouns in the bio on Twitter, they would put their mental illnesses, and it was always like autism, bipolar, blah blah blah. And so like they were wearing it as a medal, and it came to the point. This was like in 2016, 2014. Where like again you had to treat people with respect if they have autism, right? So like you would go online and someone would be a cheeky little shit towards you, like they would act in a very disrespectful, very awful manner, and if you try to respond to that, like you would get backlash and you'd get canceled. It's like, why are you behaving poorly towards a mentally ill person? Like, because like they're mentally disabled, they got autism, so they can be a dick to you, but you can't respond to that because like you gotta treat them with respect because look, they got a mental condition. And so there were people that were struggling to prove that they got autism. So like you had a lot of people that came up with self-diagnostics. Like the biggest fraud was a guy that was like writing on a blog on how it's like for parents to deal with autistic children and the struggling of autism. And at some point someone proved like, dude, you don't have autism, right? Because they were also promoting the idea of authenticity. Like only a person with autism can talk about autism. Like someone that doesn't, like a medical expert or a scientist should not be able to talk about that because they don't have it, so they can't relate to it. But anyway, like this guy was having like a huge blog and he was exposed of not having it. And then he's like, well, I don't need a medical diagnosis. I know what I have. I know it in my heart, right? Like it became like a state of being. So again, this is happening back in 2016. And there was like at some point a conversation. It's like, what if someone could cure autism, right? Like what if someone could actually have a cure and, you get an injection and it just rearranges whatever is happening, and like hypothetically speaking, right? And they were calling that a genocide. Like they were saying, no, that would be awful. Like such a treatment shouldn't exist. We should never come up. Why? Because they want to fucking have it, right? And circling back to what we started talking about now with the wheelchair situation, right? Like there are normal people that treat this being disabled as a challenge, as a difficulty. They don't want to be disabled. But then you have the ideology that tells you, no, it's part of your identity. It should be accepted. And any type of treatment is horrible. And they're brainwashing people in order to try and think this. Like for instance, I remember seeing a beauty pageant. And the person that won the beauty pageant was a lady in a wheelchair. And I was like, wow, is that what is beautiful? I mean, she is the most beautiful woman in the world, right? Like maybe I should put my wife in a wheelchair so she can compete. Like that is what they're going with now. And it's so fucking bizarre, right? Like it's this whole ideology that's meant to gaslight people of things that are so counterintuitive to human nature that any civilization across the world knows that it's shit. But you gotta pretend that no, you agree with it, because otherwise you can get canceled. As someone with autism, no amount of woke expats make it livable. The thing with autism as well, right? Like, I could have like an entire conversation built around autism, especially the one about vaccines, because like that's usually what eventually comes being brought up. There has been like a huge increase in number of people that have autism, right? Like this is no doubt about it. Even if you account for the change in definition, and you also have to tackle the autism is a spectrum bullshit, because there is a huge difference between a person that has like a high level of autism and a person that has a functioning level of autism, right? Like there are people that legitimately cannot integrate in society. They're like, and you can't compare that to a person that's very functional but like looks a little bit awkward and shy. And so, still, with that out of the way, like that is like one of the first things, like the fact that they have the same name. Like, I really hate it. Like, I like it when definitions are very strict, so that you tell me John has autism, and I need to automatically figure out, it's like, okay, is John like someone that's like incredibly special needs, and he cannot function without a caretaker, or is John just a person that's a little bit awkward, right? But anyway, let's use like the basic definition, like the one that's even like people with Asperger's and shit. Why is there a high increase in autism? And the answer is people are having kids later in life. Like the closer you are to the age of 30, if you have kids, it's more likely that they're going to come up with certain genetic abnormalities. And so if you look at the past, people would have kids right after puberty. Right, like you look at the medieval time period, but even like at the founding of the United States, even later on, people would have kids quite early in life. Like people by the age of 16, they would probably be married already, and they would also take care of their 6 or 5 younger brothers in a farm. And so back in the day, people were having kids very young. Now, people are having kids when they're older. People are having kids in their late 30s. There are people that have kids in the late 40s. The food also affects, right? Like, there's a lot of sperm defects from obesity, from poor quality foods, from all of that. And so, no, it's not vaccines. I mean, I don't know. I seen, like, various conversations about it. But, like, there are people that aren't vaccinated that they have autism. Because, like, one of the things that people are saying, it's like, well, the Amish don't have it, right? So, like, why are the Amish not having it? Well, they're not getting vaccinated. And my conversation is, well, yeah, but the Amish have kids very young, right? Like, they're very young when they're having kids. the same way that people used to have during our grandparents, right? Like the same age that our grandparents used to have kids. And they also live a healthy lifestyle. They also don't eat certain things. So like you can't just single out the vaccines. You got to look at the whole picture. That's because people also died very young. No, not necessarily. Like you did have like a high infant mortality rate. But it's also that people didn't have to do university, right? Like the university is what literally is hurting. Well, it's not hurting. Like it's changing the entire way of life for many generations, right? Like back in the day, imagine this: you're born on a farm, right? You're probably the sixth kid. You're not even being raised by your mom and dad. You're being raised by your brothers. And so when you grow up, you're expected to marry in order to start taking chores and doing your own housework. And you don't need a university. Like, you already know what you need to do because you see your brothers doing it, you see your parents doing it, right? And with that mentality, like, things are different. Even if you're, like, born in a city and you notice, like, your parents working in the factory, you already know what needs to be done. So you're having kids, and then you go to work. You don't need a university. You don't need to waste time. And the idea, it's like, I can't afford kids is something that baffles me. Like, how the fuck can you not afford kids when people during World War II and World War I were having like 6 or 7 kids? Like, no, that's just cope. Like, you don't want to have kids. That's different, right? Like, you don't want to. Okay, fine. But, like, it's not that you can't afford it. Is autism high among Mormons? No, like, autism is actually quite low among them. Nature is cruel. I see. Fertility in the US has dropped and never recovered. Yeah, there's many reasons for this. It's also like when people, and this is true for all mammals, and it's actually true for animals in general. When people are doing well, like when people are well off, when they're having plenty, they're having less kids. When people are poor, they're having a lot of kids. Why is this the case? Well, the reason is that when things are well off, you have one kid because you know he's going to make it. Like, everything is well off, right? The environment is fertile, everything is great. So you can have one kid, you can invest your energy, and you know he's going to make it. If there's a war, if there's a famine, if there's like problems, you have 6 or 7 kids in the hopes that, well, if 5 don't make it, at least 2 will continue on, right? And this is like something that you notice with animals as well. Like when the environment is harsh, they will have a lot of offsprings in the hope that some of them get to carry out the genes. When there's a time of plenty, they have less. People had their own gardens and chickens during World War II. Yeah, that's true. That's why people need to marry 18-year-old women. Well, back in the day, you know, like if you have the conversation now, people will say that it's about pedophilia. It's like back in the day, it wasn't adults that were the age of 35 marrying 16-year-olds. No, it was like when you were born in a village, your parents already knew everyone else in the village. They would try to find you a match. Like, they would try to find you someone from a well-off family. And yeah, I mean, you probably were 14 and she was 14 as well, and you got to know each other, and then there was a wedding. And that was like how time used to be back in the rural area and in the medieval time. And so, like, once people passed puberty, they would have kids. And they had like 8, 9, 10 kids during their lifetime. And that was like the situation back then. Now is the opposite extreme. Like, now is to have kids when you're 39, when you're 38. Well, okay, you can do that, but there's going to be certain genetical abnormalities which are going to cause things like autism. Sounds quaint and wholesome. Well, how old were Romeo and Juliet? Because I think like they were also very young. The concept of love didn't really exist back then. It was more like duty, right? And creating a family and having kids. Like, that was the focus. 13 and 17? Jesus fucking Christ. Really? Now compare VTubers and e-girls. Again, I think there's like a lot of exaggeration when it comes to online pornography. A lot of people think that this is new, that humanity was never as bad as it is now. I would like to remind people that brothels still exist in Europe. A house of tolerance, we used to call it. They still exist in Germany, but they were almost everywhere. Like an actual place, like in Game of Thrones, right? Like Game of Thrones actually showed it, right? Littlefinger, like he had the House of Tolerance, and you go there and you pay a woman and you fuck. And the interesting thing is that the wives wouldn't get jealous. Like this actually blew my mind because I was reading a couple of books about medieval Europe. And the reason the wives wouldn't get jealous is because it was considered the same as drinking or gambling. Like they would get angry, they would get upset, but like it wouldn't break marriages. Because there was no love or attachment. It was like fulfilling a need. And so, a lot of the time, the church itself would tolerate it because the brothels would pay taxes to the church. So, like, officially, they would tell people the same thing that they tell about, like, don't drink, don't gamble, don't go to a brothel. But they would consider that as being, part of free will. It's like if people go there, they sin. And then they come and they go through the confession. But it's just like mind-blowing knowing that those things existed, because like you're getting like a different idea from pop culture of what medieval time was and how people behaved, and then you're reading these things that happened and you're like, what the fuck, The thing that wasn't allowed though was to actually recognize that the kid is yours. Like that would piss off the wife, right? So, like, a lot of the ladies that... Because that's one of the reasons why it was outlawed. Like, first of all, it was the sexual transmitted illnesses that you would get from the House of Tolerance. Like, they were a health hazard. But the second one was the children, right? Because they were constantly producing kids. They didn't have condoms back then, or abortions, or the pill. And so, it was actually very difficult for the father to know that it is his kid because they didn't have paternity tests. And the women themselves, like if you're a lady of the night and you're having 6 or 7 customers every day, you don't know which one is it. But if you could actually pinpoint, like he looks the same or something like that, then the lady of the night would come with the kid to the father's house and he would be like, yes, this is my bastard. Then the woman would get really upset. I was 23 when I had my autistic son. It's not just age. I never said it's just age. I said age is a factor. A very important one, by the way. But there's also like obesity, food, the environment, family issues, right? So like if you do have an autistic kid, then chances are his kid, even if he actually makes a kid at an early age, will be autistic as well. They did have plans. They had like various ways to try and make sure that they don't get pregnant. They used vinegar. Apparently, instead of condom, they used like pig guts. Like there's a lot of things that they actually did try to use, but it wasn't foolproof, obviously. You are required to be married by 21 in Europe at the time. Yeah, like if you were at the age of 21 and you weren't married, especially if you're a woman, they would view you in a very negative light. Like, they would wonder, like, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she married? Like, something's off. Like, is she not a virgin? What, is she sinful? Like, what exactly is happening here? And so, yeah, like, there was a lot of social stigma if you were 21 and you didn't get married back in the day. In game Kingdom Come Deliverance, a Lord's bastard of the blacksmith's wife. That's I didn't like the story of Kingdom Come Deliverance. The aesthetics, some of the way people behave, is actually accurate, but a lot of the stuff when it comes about nobility and the rest of the storyline, no, that's completely fiction. Love didn't exist back then. No, I didn't say that love didn't exist. I said that marriage for love was quite rare. Like you would get married in order to have kids and start a household and not die out of poverty. Like you need to understand there was no welfare back then, right? So like when you were old, you needed your kids to take care of you just like you're taking care of your dad. If that didn't happen, there was no safety net. And so getting married was something that you did in order to have kids because it was a life and death thing. It wasn't like, oh, about love. Like most of the time, you were getting married in order to inherit land, to increase the family wealth. Like that's why you were getting married. Like the idea that you're marrying for love, no. I mean, it could happen. Like, don't get me wrong. Like some of the arranged marriages, they could find love afterwards, or some people were really happy with the wives that they got. But there are books written in Romanian. One is called Ion. Ion is a Romanian name, and literally the story of the book, like it's from the rural area, and it's not medieval. Like it's actually a lot more recent. I think it's the interbellum period. And that's like one of the dilemmas that the main author has. It's like, does he marry the ugly chick that has a lot of land and he will inherit a huge fortune? Or does he marry the girl with plump tits that he actually loves? And the decision was to marry the girl with the big land and then fucks the girl with the big plump tits and gets in a fight with the husband and eventually he gets killed. But the writing exists because that was actually a cultural thing back then. Anyway, right. I'll end the show here. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Hope you had fun. And I'll see you on my